What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video on our channel, and today we are going to be taking you step by step through the process of adding new crops to Minecraft using Mcreator. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So assuming you don't already have a workspace made that you want to work from, you're going to have to start by making a new workspace, and you're immediately presented with the choice of Neoforge or Forge. These other three options that you might be able to tell are grayed out. We need additional plugins to use them, so I will assume you are not using them for the sake of this tutorial. And I'm also going to pick Neoforge, as Neoforge can support 1.21.1 and Forge can only support 1.20.1. Let's go ahead and type in a display name and fill out all the rest of this real quick. So we're going to type in the name that will display for our mod, and then the ID or mod's namespace. I recommend that you don't change this unless you have something simple or some abbreviation you really want to change it to, but this could potentially be very important later, so it might come in handy just leaving it as is. As far as the Java package name goes, I have no reason, no idea why you would change this, so I would highly recommend you keep that the same as well. And then of course, you can download the workspace folder to wherever you like. Once you're finished, just press create new workspace down here. After a short loading sequence, you should see a page that looks like this. If you're brand new to Mcreator, this can immediately get really confusing, but I'm going to try to break it down for you as simple as possible. First thing you want to do is notice these tabs over here on the left. We are currently in the Mod Elements tab. This is a direct tab for every single element that you have added to the mod, elements that the players can experience while playing the game. You also have a Resources tab, which should pretty much be empty right now, but these are going to be your texture files, your 3D models, your sound files, structures, screenshots, and this GeckoLib one is a plugin, so right now you can just completely ignore that. You also have element tags. Tags are very important for modding, and we might cover them in this video, but we might not. You have variables and localization. Now the localization here is pretty much completely useless unless you want to import various other languages. And the variables I just don't use that often. So for the sake of today's video, the only two tabs we will probably be working in are resources and mod elements, with a chance we might cover some basic tags. So the first step in adding your new crop is going to be creating the texture for the crop item itself. I actually already have a texture made because I am going to be remaking the strawberry crops from my mod A.C.E MC overhaul. So we are actually going to come over here to import textures, import an item texture, and import our strawberry right here. So we now have textures for items strawberry. We're also going to want to create the crop textures themselves. So and you can create a new texture, but I'm going to import block textures and then go from crop 0 all the way to crop 3 and open. We now have textures for blocks up here, and you can see this is our basic crop. This is growth stage 1, or growth stage 2, and our growth stage 3. So our strawberries mimic beetroots and only have 4 growth stages. Fun fact, carrots and potatoes only have 4 visual growth stages, but actually progress through a total of 8 growth stages, the same as wheat. But now that we have the texture for these items and these blocks, we're going to go ahead and have to add them as actual items and actual blocks in the mod. So I would recommend coming up here and adding a folder and naming it strawberries. This way, if you add any other crops to your mod, your strawberries will be sorted into their own folder. You can also add another folder for, say, onions or corn, and continue on like that to keep all your stuff nice and organized. Next, come into the strawberries folder and press this little plus at icon. It's going to give you a huge list of various things that you can add to your mod, but we want an item. We're going to name this item strawberry. You can also name it strawberry item if that's the naming convention you wish to follow. Just keep it consistent, whatever you do. Next up, we're going to come in here and select a texture for our item. Immediately, you're going to notice that our first option is our item texture. but the rest of these are the vanilla item textures. So if you want to recreate an item from the vanilla game, it's quite easy because all the textures are already here for you. But we want our custom strawberry texture. And then come to properties. We want the in-game name to be strawberry, the rarity to be common, the creative inventory tab to be food, standard item destroy speed. Be warned, if you set this value at 0, it will be impossible to break any items while holding your strawberries, even if that item is, say, dirt, and should be breakable with your bare hand. So go ahead and leave this at 1. No item animation and no item use duration. Now these last two will actually change when we click on food properties because we do want this to be a food. Next, we have to pick a nutritional value. If we set this to 20, it will fill our entire hunger bar immediately. But if we set it to 2, that's 1 chicken wing, which sounds fair to me. Next, we set the secret hidden value of saturation. This is a value you can't normally see when playing the game, but defines how long it takes for you to become hungry again. Let's go ahead and set it at 0.1, which is a relatively low saturation, which I find reasonable for strawberries. There is no result from eating the item, it's just simply going to disappear. It's not meat, which is important for, say, healing dogs, because dogs can only be healed with meat. And it's not always edible. This is something like golden apples or enchanted golden apples, things that give you buffs, so you'll always want to be able to eat them because they don't just have nutritional value. If we go back to our properties page, you'll notice that the animation has automatically switched to eating, and it's given our default item use duration of 32 ticks. I'm gonna go ahead and save our item element, and we have now added strawberries to the game. The problem is, there's no way to get them, and there's nothing that you can do with them. So let's go ahead and add strawberry seeds. Back to our resources, import or add, whichever one you would like to do. And we can add strawberry seeds. Then come back to our mod elements, add a new item, and name it strawberry seeds. Select the proper texture, make sure that all your properties are the correct value, and then go ahead and save. Now we have strawberry seeds. We have a couple of options as to how to get strawberry seeds though. I think the best thing to do is going to make it mirror the wheat seeds and make them drop from grass. The easiest way to make our strawberry seeds drop from grass is to add a loot table for the existing grass block in the game. It's officially called short grass. We're going to add loot table on the end here, just to prevent redundancy if we needed to say a strawberry loot table. We can then come up here to the registry name and get rid of the loot table, because we just want it to say blocks/short grass. Because this already exists in the game, we need to change the namespace from our custom mod to just Minecraft, and it is a block loot table type. So our last variable here is all good. Next, we want to come down here to our first loot table and add the short grass item, which in here is actually called tall grass, and the other one's called double tall grass. It's a little bit confusing, but just do your best to remember this. Then we only wanted to drop this with Silk Touch, but we need another loot table as well. This loot table is going to be for our seeds, especially our wheat seeds. Now you may be thinking, well, doesn't the short grass already drop wheat seeds? But what we're doing here is actually recreating the loot table from scratch. So if you didn't want short grass to drop wheat seeds anymore, you could just remove wheat seeds from this and the player would have no way of getting them from short grass anymore. But we want it so that short grass can drop wheat seeds or strawberry seeds. But we do want our short grass item and our wheat seeds to be mutually exclusive. So we need to come over here and make sure that this only plays without Silk Touch, but it is affected by Fortune. We can then add another pool entry here and add our strawberry seeds. Make these the same way, affected by Fortune, only without Silk Touch, and there we go. The only problem is, if we break it without Silk Touch, we are guaranteed to get wheat seeds or strawberry seeds every single time. That's because our rolls are 1, max and min, and our entry weight is 1. So we have a 50% chance of getting 1 wheat seed or 1 strawberry seed. You could get more strawberry seeds and wheat seeds by affecting these values right here. However, we don't want it to be guaranteed, so we want to add another entry into this pool and make it so that that has a chance of dropping air. Air is not an actual block, so this represents the chance of getting nothing. We then want to tune this weight up to 6, because in the default game, the chance of getting wheat seeds are 1 in 8. So you may be thinking, well, that's only 1, and this is only 6, so isn't it 1 in 7 now? But it's actually still 1 in 8 because our strawberry seeds also have a chance of 1. So it's still a 1 in 8 chance of getting wheat seeds, a 1 in 8 chance of getting strawberry seeds, but a 6 in 8 chance of getting nothing instead of a 7 in 8 chance. This doesn't need to be affected by fortune, and technically we could have it ignore Silk Touch, but for the sake of realism, it really should only play without Silk Touch, even though the player wouldn't notice either way. Now, we didn't have to build the loot table like this. We could have actually added another loot table for our strawberry seeds and made it so that we could have gotten wheat seeds and strawberry seeds. But I kind of like the idea that you only get one or the other. You can't get both. So with our loot table all set up, we're going to save this mod element. And now we are finally ready to test what we've added so far. Our strawberry seeds and our strawberries had no functionality to them, so there was really no reason to test them. But our loot table definitely does. And before we continue, we're going to want to make sure that it's working properly. So click the play button up here, and if you go to the console, you can see that the Gradle is running and building Minecraft. Pretty soon, you'll have a working version of Minecraft running that you can play test. We're just going to make a basic world here. So we've loaded into a basic world. Let's go ahead and break some grass and see what we get. Nothing. Nothing. Strawberry seeds. So it's pretty obvious that our loot table is working properly. Let's just get some wheat seeds real quick to verify that the wheat seed drop is also working properly and call it good. All right. So now that we can actually get strawberry seeds, we need a function from them. So if we open them up and go to triggers, we can see when right-clicked on block position. Now this is exactly the trigger that we want because we need to know when the strawberry seeds have been clicked on farmland. So I'm going to come in here and make sure that this says strawberry seeds, right-clicked on block, create procedure. However, when strawberry seeds are right-clicked on block, we need to place the strawberry crop. So we need to make the crop before we can actually finish this code. So let's go ahead and save this mod element and save this mod element and leave it. Now we need to come here and add a new block to the game. We're going to call this strawberry crop 0. We want to change the block model in here to be the crop model, and then change the texture here to be our basic strawberry crop. It does have some transparent parts, so we should change the texture transparency to cutout. The difference between cutout and cutout mipped is relatively unimportant, and translucent should be used for things that are slightly opaque, but still have color, such as glass. Whereas cutout and cutout mipped are used for solid items that just have parts of the texture with open spaces, such as basic glass. Whereas translucent is more like dyed glass. I hope that made sense. As far as the bounding box goes, we are going to have to adjust its maximum coordinate because right now it is a full block. So let's go back over to our workspace and our resources and take a look at our texture here. It only comes up about 4 pixels and spans the entire width of this texture. So our max X and Z coordinate should be 16, but our max Y coordinate should only be about 4. So let's go to properties. We're going to want to change this from strawberry crop 0 to just strawberry crop. It shouldn't be in the creative inventory tab at all, as this is a ghost block or a block that we don't want the player to actually acquire. Can walk through this block. It should have a custom drop. We want this thing to drop strawberry seeds, not itself. Now we could use a loot table for drops, but with our basic crop, we really only ever want it to drop one strawberry seed. It is only our fully grown crop that is going to use a loot table. As far as the creative pick item goes, we probably also want it to pick strawberries, as if we creative pick item wheat crops, we will get wheat. It doesn't require any sort of tool for the correct drops, or for, I guess, these drops to trigger, but it should have a crop sound set. We can now go to advanced properties. We do want this block to tick, but we want it to tick randomly as all crops do. And as far as block color on the map goes, it can be a plant. It should be destroyed when pushed by a piston. It doesn't block AI path node, so it's open. And it doesn't have any random model offset, but it can be fertilized with bone meal. So we're gonna go ahead and check this, and we'll come back to these procedures later. And although it should have triggers, we don't need any right now. We also don't want it to generate naturally in the open world, so make sure that this is unchecked. Go ahead and save the mod element, close our crop PNG, and we're good to go. We can then go back to our strawberry seeds procedure. Remember, this procedure is triggered whenever a strawberry seed item is clicked on any block. So we need to make sure under logic here that the block in question is the same block as farmland. So we've got the block here, I got that from data, block at XYZ is the same block as Minecraft components, blocks, farmland. Now, if your mod is like A.C.E.'s MC Overhaul and you have your own custom type of farmland, you can fix this by using an OR statement. So we can go to logic, equals, change this equal sign to OR, and I like to do external inputs so that we can drag that here, copy paste, and you can put your own custom farmland in here. However, let's say that you have 5 different types of farmland and you don't want to add 5 OR statements here. That's understandable. That's a lot of code. We can go back to our workspace, go to element tags, and add a new tag. Make sure that it's under your mod namespace. Let's call it, say, crop tutorial, as that is the name of this mod. Make sure that it is a block tag, and the tag name itself is something like farmland. You can then come into this tag and add all of the different types of farmland that you have and reference this tag instead of each of the blocks individually. If you come in here under data, you'll see that right here, we could easily remove this and say, is the block tagged as mod, which is crop tutorial farmland. This actually works the exact same as this because we have made our tag right here. These are completely interchangeable. I recommend this if this is the only block you need to check, but I recommend this if there are 3 or more blocks that you need to check. We only have 1 block to check, so we're good just making sure that the block in question is farmland. However, we also need to make sure that that farmland doesn't have a crop already planted on it. So we need to search is air at. Go back to our logic statements and change this to an and statement. Make it external inputs and drop both of these. So now we're checking that the block we have clicked is farmland, but we're also checking that the block we have clicked is air. So we need to go to math, go into the Y, and make it go up by just 1. So now we're checking that the block we've clicked is farmland, and the block above it is just air. This is exactly the conditions we need to plant strawberries. So the next thing we're going to do is make it so that we place our strawberry crop block on the block above the farmland. However, this does not naturally consume the strawberry seed in our inventory. So what we need to do is go into our player procedures, actions, scroll down, and we need to remove 1 strawberry seed from the event/target entity's main inventory. However, there is a small problem here. If the player is in creative mode, this will still trigger. So we need to detect whether they have the creative mode ability enabled. Go into flow control once again, and if they have creative mode ability not enabled, then remove the strawberry seed from their inventory. While this is working, it's not entirely finished to fit completely in the base game of Minecraft. There's almost always things you can forget, such as advancements. You may remember that there is an advancement for planting seeds. So what we are doing here is successfully planting a seed. So we also should double check if the player has gotten that advancement. If they haven't gotten the advancement, which we can tell from by adding another knot here, then we're going to add that advancement to the player. Things like this are strictly unnecessary, but they make your mod feel more complete. Go ahead and save it whenever you're done. And now that we have added more functionality, we should double check to make sure that it's still working. Go ahead and launch the game and double check. So here we are with farmland. Let's right click on it, and everything seems to be working properly. It properly removes the strawberry seed from my inventory, places the strawberry crop down, and gives me the proper advancement. Let's double check that it will not plant strawberries if there is already wheat on the block. So we're right clicking our farmland, and because there is already wheat growing, it will not overwrite the wheat and place in our strawberries. But so far, our strawberries are working pretty much the same as our wheat is. Next up, we need the strawberry crop to be able to grow. There are a couple different ways we can do this. I highly recommend you download a plugin called blockstates. It's going to save code and make it a lot easier for you to transfer between crop states. However, Mcreator does not have block state support by default, and this does require a plugin. So I'm not going to be telling you how to use this. Instead, I'm going to show you how to do it right in default base Mcreator. We're going to start by duplicating the crop we have so far and calling it strawberry crop 1. We can then go into the crop, change its texture to the next advanced stage, check our texture height, which is now 6 particles tall, or 6 pixels tall. Go into our bounding box and adjust the height accordingly. We can then do that again and name it strawberry crop 2. Change the texture, change the bounding box height, and go ahead and save. We have one more advancement stage to go through. Change the texture, change the bounding box one more time, double check our properties and our triggers. Now there actually is some things we need to change on this one. You'll notice that this is strawberry crop full grown, so its custom drop should be using a loot table. When creative pick item can remain the same, and our advanced properties, ticking is completely unnecessary as this crop does not need to grow, it just needs to wait to be destroyed. So we can go ahead and save this. And now we have our 4 crop stages. Let's go back into our first crop and give it a bone meal action procedure. Now we always want bone meal to be able to be used on the block, but we only want it to succeed sometimes. So we're going to add a bone meal success condition. This can apply to all of them, so we don't need the 0 in there. Strawberry crop bone meal success condition, create the procedure. Now in the base game, beetroots, which is what our strawberries have been modeled after, have a 75% chance of succeeding. So what we're going to do is we're going to set a random number between 0 and 1, so that's some decimal that is less than 1 but greater than 0, and if that decimal happens to be less than 0.075, which is of course 75% chance, then we want it to succeed. So under flow control, we need to return logic, and that logic needs to be true. However, if this does not trigger, we need to return false. And this is our entire bone meal success condition done. However, we also need an on bone meal success procedure. So we can go to strawberry crop 0. This time the 0 is important. On bone meal success. We can even remove the on as it's a little redundant. Now what we want to do here is replace the block at XYZ, that is our strawberry crop in question, with the next stage, strawberry crop 1. This mirrors beetroot exactly, in which they only jump one stage every time. Things like carrots and potatoes jump at least 2 stages and have a chance of going even further or less, but this should work just fine. We have no special states or NBT inventory data, so these don't need to be checked, and this should be pretty much all we need for our strawberry crop 0 bone meal success procedure. We now have our bone meal success right here all done and dusted, so let's go ahead and save this mod element. We can then go into strawberry crop 1 and mirror what we've just done. Make sure that this is strawberry crop bone meal success condition and create a new strawberry crop 1 bone meal success procedure. This is all going to be rinse and repeat for our strawberry crop 2, so I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. So all of our strawberry crops should now be able to be bone mealed to advance the growth stage. However, they don't advance growth stage on their own, naturally via tick updates. So what we need to do is go into our strawberry crop 0, go into triggers, and then add an on tick update procedure. Now this procedure is going to be used for all of our crops, so we don't need the 0. And once again, we can also cut out that word on to just make it strawberry crop tick update procedure. Now I'm actually, instead of building my own update procedure from here, I'm going to import my old procedure from A.C.E.'s MC overhaul, as it is very advanced and very smart, but kind of complicated. So I'm going to do my best to walk you through what we're doing here. Let's go ahead and collapse all the jargon so to make it as straightforward as possible. The first thing we're doing on a strawberry crop tick update is checking the light level at the block. I moved the X and the Z by 0.5 because a block's identification is actually in the corner of the block, not the dead center. So what this is doing is it's checking the dead center of the block above the strawberry crop and getting its light level. Now, if it's a light level of 7 or higher, or our strawberry crop can see the sky, meaning it's nighttime, so its light level is low, but it's still got access to the sky, and the block underneath it is tagged as farmland, which, for the sake of our mod here, we do not need the tag. We actually just need a is the same block as. So we're verifying that it is still on top of farmland, and it has the proper light level for crop growth. And then we will do our crop growth procedure, which is right here. However, if either of things are not true, our crop cannot or should not exist. So we will remove the block at XYZ and spawn break particles. We will then play the sound crop break and then call our crop destroyed procedure. This is unnecessary as we are going to be using loot tables. So we're assuming that our light level is proper and we are placed on farmland. So the next thing we're going to do is check if our light level is above or equal to 9. If you are unaware, anything below a light level of 7 and the crop will destroy itself. But if it's a light level of 8 or 7, it won't grow. It actually has to be at least a light level of 9 to make your crops grow. So we are now verifying that our crops have the ability to grow. What you then need to do, and what all of this jargon is up until here, is setting the likelihood and the chance that we do successfully grow. This mimics the vanilla likelihoods. So technically, all of this stuff here is strictly unnecessary. All you really need is to set a rand to a random, and then if rand is less than some point value, such as 50%, then check the current block and advance to the next one. Now my mod uses block states, so I don't really need block states, I just need the blocks themselves. So that might look something like this, where I check to see if it's at growth stage 0, and then promote it to growth stage 1, check for growth stage 1, promote it to growth stage 2, check for growth stage 2, check, promote it to growth stage 3. It'll only do one of these things, so what we've officially done here is if our rand is less than the value we set, the whatever odds you think is necessary, or you think works good for your crop, then it will advance to the next stage. And just like that, technically, we're done. However, I am going to quickly walk you through all of these checks and what I am doing here to try and mimic default crop growth, just in case you are interested. So the first thing we're doing is checking our hydration value, or if it is raining. So if it is not raining in the world, we go ahead and set hydrated to false and then check to see how hydrated we are. However, if it is raining, we set hydrated to true right away and jump to our next value. However, let's walk through what happens if it's not raining. We set hydrated to false, set row equal to 3, and then run a while loop. So while logic hydrated is not true, so while hydrated is still false, and while row is greater than -4, we then set count to -3, and then run another while loop, and while count is less than 4, if any of the blocks in the X position of count, or the Z position of row, and the Y position above us, or the level that we're at right now, is water. And you may quickly think that these are the same, but one of these is flowing water and one of these is regular water, as they both hydrate. And if they are hydrated, then we set logic to hydrated and break out of the loop. And then because we are now hydrated, this loop is then also broken out of, and we're good to go. However, if we check every block around us and none of it is hydrated, then we keep hydrated as false. To quickly sum this up, really all we're doing is checking if there is adequate water source around us, or if it is raining, so we know whether our farmland is properly hydrated. Then we set local points to 0 and local row to 1. And if we are hydrated, then we run this little code. So if row is greater than -2, set count to -1. And if count is less than 2, if block at X affected by count, Z affected by row is the same block as farmland, set points to 0.05. Else, if it is affected by our custom fertilized farmland, add +1. Now we don't need this because we don't have our own custom fertilized farmland that increases our chance of growth, so we just have our default 0.75. We then increase count and run it again, increase count and run it again, all the way up until we break the while loop. Then we'll decrease row and run it again, and do it again and again and again until our points have been added up properly, and we know how many points of hydrated farmland we've gotten based on what's around us. If we are not hydrated, we run the same thing, but we add about half as many points because our farmland is not hydrated. We can cut this out once again, as we don't need it. It is only necessary if you have other types of farmland. And then we can go ahead and collapse this block again. We then run this equation, which is the exact equation that is run on default games. We set local number points to 1 over the rounded down number of 25 over our existing point value plus 1. This is very confusing and kind of convoluted, but please just do your best if you want to do this to just mimic and mirror exactly what I've done here. We now have a points value. So this part is a little bit confusing, but we are basically just checking the crop patterns around us. If you don't know, crops grow fastest if they are planted in a straight line, the same way that they generate in villages. So villagers actually kind of know what they're doing. So what we're doing here is we're doing our absolute best to verify that we are only having strawberries in a straight line. So if we are checking these 4 spots, which is our diagonals. So if there are any crops that are the same as what we are, the strawberry plant, on the diagonal, we immediately cut our points in half. However, we also need to check if there are crops on both the X and Z axis, thus the and right here. And if there are crops on both of these axes, we are also cutting our points in half. Notice we don't cut them in half and then cut them in half again. It's only a 1 division point. And then we've made it all the way back down here to the code I showed you before. So that's pretty much everything that default crop code does. So if you want to mirror it, feel free. Now we're going to have to go ahead and remove this tag, as this tag does not exist in the game in our custom mod right here. So we're going to make a new tag in here, call it crop tutorial strawberries, and make it a block tag. We're then going to add all of our strawberry crop blocks. We can then come back in here, type crop tutorial strawberries. Change all of these tags out. Go ahead and collapse it again, and now all of this code should be working properly. The only thing left to do is go into all of our crops, go into triggers, and make sure that it is triggering on strawberry crop tick update. So that's working wonderfully. However, we still need a loot table for our biggest strawberry crop here for when it is destroyed. Little handy dandy trick. If I click on the question mark here, it will tell me exactly what I need to name our loot table in order to get it to work properly. We're going to come over here, make another loot table, and call it strawberry crop loot table. Press enter, and then double check our strawberry crop, because it needs to be called strawberry crop underscore 3 with a mod namespace. So I need to get rid of the loot table part here and add a 3. Our loot table should now be properly registered. There should be no silk touch options here, so we don't need to add the drop of itself. However, what we do want is it to drop strawberries anywhere from, let's say, 1 to 4, affected by fortune, ignoring silk touch. We can go ahead and save this mod element. And now, whenever someone destroys our big crop, it should drop 1 to 4 strawberries, ignoring silk touch. We can also make that affected by fortune. So it's probably time to go ahead and test what we've done so far. So the first thing we're going to do is test that our bone meal procedure is working by right-clicking this with bone meal. And you can see it does seem to be working just fine. However, the max layer can also be bone mealed. And if I'm not mistaken, when we do wheat seeds, once we get to our max layer, we can no longer click it anymore. So we've discovered our first bug. Let's go back to our coding, go into our strawberry crop 3, advanced properties, cannot be bone mealed. Go ahead and save, and we've fixed that bug. Now let's go into game mode survival and break this crop. It does indeed drop a strawberry, which is what we were expecting. However, it could also drop more. So let's go ahead and break it again and verify that we get maybe a few more. There, we got 3 that time. And I would be willing to say that those 2 tests are enough to verify that it is working properly. But now we have to verify that our strawberry crops are growing on their own. So the best way to do this is going to be to change the random tick speed. By default, it's at 3. So let's set it to 300 and watch our crops. Now, if the crops don't grow at all and don't change, there's probably something wrong with our growth tick procedure. But if they do change and they do grow, then we've probably got everything working properly. I'm not seeing any sort of change, so let's plant some wheat seeds and see how fast they grow. The frequency with which our wheat seeds are changing compared to the starkness of which our strawberry seeds are changing, which is to say none at all, I would say we probably have an issue. Luckily, this issue wasn't actually too hard to fix because I verified it was indeed ticking randomly. However, I guess I forgot to set the tick update procedure to be its tick update trigger. So that will definitely fix the problem we're seeing. Let's go ahead and save and quit to title and try again. So we're loading back in and immediately we'll notice some more growth. So as far as I can tell, our strawberry crops are working properly. If we go ahead and break these, we do have a slight issue. We need to change the resistance to 0 because they should break as soon as we hit them, but they do have just the slightest break time. If we break the ones that aren't fully grown, they should give us seeds, which they seem to be doing properly. So that should be pretty much everything done. To make those few changes, we need to come in here, go into properties, and set our hardness, I believe, and set both of these values to 0. Make sure you've done that for all of your strawberry crops. Now there's only one more thing I'd like to test. Yep, that's exactly what I thought. If we destroy the block underneath it and replace it, the crop does not update whatsoever. So we need to add a neighbor block change update tick to our crop to make sure that it's working properly. So let's go back into our basic strawberry crop, go to triggers, and add when neighbor block changes. This one can be the same for all of them, so we don't need the 0 there, and that should be good. Let's go ahead and create procedure. And really all we need to know is right here, the same stuff that we check right at the beginning of growing our crops. So I've gone ahead and imported that procedure. I'm gonna delete all of the hunky nonsense right there and delete this as well because we don't have that tag. In fact, all we want to check for is farmland. Now we don't want to do anything if this is true, only if it is not true. So let's move this up in here, add a not, add another not, and then change this to or. So if this is not true or this is not true, then we can call our next procedures here. Remove the block and spawn break particles, play the sound of it breaking, and instead of calling the procedure that no longer exists or does not exist in this workspace, we are simply going to detect if we are at the final stage. And if it is, we are going to execute this command /loot spawn space. There's a space at the end here that's very important. X coordinate space, Y coordinate space, Z coordinate space at the beginning of this phrase here, loot crop tutorial, and then here is our loot table right there. So essentially what we are doing is we are spawning in loot from the loot table here. Else we are just dropping one strawberry seed, then removing the block and spawning break particles. As far as I can tell, this is working just fine. However, I will say I'm going to go ahead and export this procedure as strawberry just so that I can import it to the end of here. This is our tick update procedure, and we can now add this part right here to the end of it. And as far as I can tell, that makes all of our strawberries completely done. Let's go ahead and launch the game and make sure that they're working as intended. Let's test everything in survival first. When we place the strawberry seed, it does indeed consume it. And when we break it, it gives it back. That is great. Let's place it, bone meal it, and try again. Yep, still gives us that seed back. Let's bone meal it again to the next stage. Try it one more time. Yep, that's working. All the way to our full growth stage. Break it again, and we got our strawberry. And all we have to do now is test everything else in creative. Our bone meal does seem to be working properly. We no longer continue to bone meal after it is fully grown. And if we, let's see, place a block next to it, destroy the block under it, it does break properly and properly spawns our grown strawberries. Whereas if we break these, oh, wait a minute. I think we haven't added our neighbor block update to our other crops. Let's go back and check. So if we check our other crops here and go to triggers, yes, we have not added our neighbor block trigger to the rest of our crops. It looks like it is on block 1. It is on block 3. So it looks like we only missed it for the first one right here. That means if we go back here and we bone meal this one and then try, yes, it is indeed working. I'm willing to consider that completely done. Now you may notice that our fully grown crop does not actually spawn in strawberry seeds. You can easily add that to the loot table if you like, or you can add a recipe right here and call it strawberry seed recipe. And I actually like to label that as recipe 0, just in case we ever add any more recipes for strawberry seeds. But make that so that we go from strawberry item into strawberry seeds. And say let's give us about about 4 of those. I think that's what Ace's MC Overhaul does. And just like that, we have a completed crop, completely farmable, completely renewable, and all done and dusted. I will release these files and try and post them up on YouTube if you just want to download this directly so you can take a look at all this code yourself, maybe mimic it, maybe copy paste some of it. But without further ado, that's going to go ahead and wrap up today's video. I hope you all have enjoyed. If you have a specific thing you would like to see added to Mcreator, such as, I don't know, workstations, lights, redstone components, etc., please feel free to comment down below and I will do what I can next week. If you would also like to see how to do strawberry crops or just crops in general using the blockstates plugin, which is a very valuable plugin, I highly recommend it, then I might consider posting another video, potentially a short, talking about how to go from what we've done here, converting to block states. But that's going to do it. If you enjoyed and you would like to see more tutorials on how to do things in Mcreator, make sure to like and subscribe to stick around. But without further ado, peace out.